some entity in society that has authorized this use of force, right? That is the police. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I wanted to do this video on the police and use of force, just as a reflection of 2020 with Black Lives Matter, COVID. Again, I want to talk about the use of force and the police here in America. With everything that's going on, I felt that it was worth some discussion to talk about the use of force and police across the U.S. With the current situation with Black Lives Matter, I think the mainstream America is more sensitized now to the Black Lives Matter movement after the George Floyd incident. It doesn't mean only blacks or African Americans matter and nobody else. No, that's not what it means. What it has to do with is the fact that, for years, for generations, that African Americans or blacks in the U.S. have not been treated on the same level. With Black Lives Matter, it's a group of individuals pretty much coming out and saying, hey, look, for generations, for decades, Black lives have not been given worth or value in this American society as particularly white America, right? So in order to come out and say Black Lives Matter, their belief is that part of society believes Black lives don't matter. And that is shown through the amount of blacks or African Americans or minorities that die every year, particularly at the hands of police. That's something that needs to be looked at. So yes, there's a disproportionate amount of blacks that die at the hands of law enforcement. Blacks are 13 to 14% of the population of the U.S., yet we're 3 times as likely to die at the hands of law enforcement. That's something that needs to be looked at. By looking into the use of force and going into a paper that was written by Dr. Egon Bittner of Brandeis University, where he talks about the functions of the police in the modern society. The target of this video is actually for people that are in law enforcement and also on an administrative level. So anybody dying at the hands of police is an issue. But I'm particularly talking about the blacks and Latinos because it's a disproportionate amount of blacks and Latinos that die at the hands of police. I don't want to get into whether they deserve it or not. The point is that it's happening. It's happening, and there appears to be a greater amount of blacks that are unarmed. Okay. And I mean, I can sit here and talk about, there's George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, there's, the gentleman just last week in what was it, Ohio. But in any event, it's happening. Every week you're hearing about, another one that's happened. Anytime anyone is, incarcerated or definitely, put in jail, what that does is it causes a breakdown of the nuclear family. Also is a breakdown of the community, and also this great distrust in that community. That's one of the reasons why where you have neighborhoods and cities that do not trust the police, right? It's because of things like unarmed black individuals that are getting killed. I'd like to delve a little further into, why I believe that. I want to talk about use of force, and there's 2 principles I want to talk about with the use of force. One, some entity, right, in society that is allowed, that is authorized this use of force, right? That is the police. Police need to be able to provide that duty in their job. The other principle, it needs to be executed properly. It needs to be done properly. So deadly force needs to have a limitation, right? And that limitation is it needs to be in pursuit of its duties, and also It can't be done frivolously, any type of malice, or for personal gain, right? So the problem with that is if you're in law enforcement, you're human, right? And sometimes that could get in the way with the, carrying out your duties and separating that from any type of personal, your personal life or personal gain, right? But that is where training comes in. We need to make sure that the officers obtain that ongoing training to make sure that they're able to execute use of force appropriately and properly, right? So, and is not to abuse it. To principles. So let's talk about when should use of force be executed. So, really when it comes to law enforcement and use of force, that use of force should be used as a defense, right? So defense of yourself, and also as a law enforcement who is there to protect and serve the community, you're also there to defend the citizens of the community as well, right? So anytime there's a threat, right, or a risk of threat or a threat to either themselves, their colleagues, or the citizens of that community, use of force may need to be used. And exactly when it should be used, again, that's where your training comes in. Because it seems as though, people are, when an issue comes up or an uncomfortable situation where they could be at risk, they're on their gun. They're on their gun and they're shooting, right? That's what happened with this last case with this individual out in Ohio. Use of force should be used, in my opinion, when they're a threat on the law enforcement himself or citizens or obviously colleagues. And obviously, when I say a threat, I'm talking about a situation where you're at a possible loss of life or limb, right? So as a law enforcement officer, you are there to protect and serve, and you are there to protect the citizens, and obviously yourself. And if there is a threat, a mortal threat against your life, right, then you may need to get on that. You may need to get on your sidearm and protect yourself. Again, I think, and this is where, that training comes in to make sure that law enforcement officer clearly knows what constitutes a threat where you're on your weapon, right? I'm not sure that's happening. There's so many other things. There's so many other duties that a police officer does, right? So that's what kind of makes it difficult because, there's, you got police officers that, they'll respond to anything. Make sure there's peace in the community. They're there to, lightning knocks over a tree in the road. They're there removing the tree from the road. A traffic light goes out. They're in the intersection directing traffic. So there's so many different things that a police officer does. However, I think it's time that we make sure that they're using the use of force appropriately, properly, and not frivolously. When it's not used appropriately, that's when individuals die. Bottom line, we never want a police officer to die in a line of duty, right? Police officer definitely has a right to protect themselves and also the citizens of the community. It's just so communities around the U.S. You have so many, black communities that have a distrust for police officers. So what are some things that police departments can do in order to start building that trust up again? One, I'll tell you, is to spend more time in that community, not just in your patrol car, right? When you're just driving around the neighborhood with that patrol car, you're not getting to know the community. So spending more time in the community, out, pounding the pavement, and getting to know, the individuals in that community, So That's number one. Number two is reaching out, doing some outreach, reaching out to certain groups or individuals in that community, certain neighborhood watch group, the hotels in that area, making sure hotel security officers or hotel security individuals are linked in with you, reaching out to public middle elementary schools, hit them while they're young, and go in, enter classes, maybe talk about what a police officer does and all that kind of stuff, so that people aren't scared of you. The children aren't scared of you. If all they see is you coming into the neighborhood, as a law enforcement officer, when someone gets shot or injured, right? They're going to associate police officers with negative vibes, right? So by spending more time in the community outside of your patrol car, getting to know individuals, and also doing that outreach with organizations and establishments in the community, that I think would go very, very far for the police departments. So another thing that you can do is make sure that your officers are first aid certified. That if there is a situation where you need to render first aid, that the officer actually does that. These are the type of things that look good in the community when you're actually, communities want to know that you care about that community. And if you are certified in first aid and actually render first aid, if you're on the scene of an accident or something like that, you're rendering first aid in order to help repair that community. Maybe this is something that can be done. The fourth thing is defunding the police. And what I mean by defunding the police is taking some of the funding and the responsibility and duties, right, from the police. Remember, I said the police have so much to do. Maybe if we take some of those responsibilities from the police and give them to other experts in the field, for example, mental health. Police really should not be in the foreground of dealing with, a lot of these mental health or behavioral health issues. There still may need to be some police present, but if you take some of that responsibility of the police interfacing with some of the behavioral health calls, right? Again, that's taking the money and the responsibility from the police and giving it to other experts in the field of behavioral health or mental health. Okay. So I'd like to sum up the crux of the issue here, which is the use of force and the disproportionate killing of unarmed black men in America. Blacks or African Americans make up 14% of the U.S. population. As U.S. citizens, we receive the full rights of the Constitution, right? That's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, just like everybody else. When we look at African American and Black Americans having a disproportionate amount of incarcerations in the U.S., when we have things such as the Tuskegee experiment, where, from the 1930s to the 1970s, where you had the U.S. government were using like about 400 Black Americans. They didn't even know participating in any type of research program with syphilis. And once they did come up with a treatment, they weren't given the opportunity to be cured or treated for syphilis. And then on top of that, you have unarmed Black Americans that are dying in the U.S. At the hands of our law enforcement. All right. So, these are issues that have been going on for years. And so this Black Lives Matter is saying, hey, look, we are U.S. citizens also. Please give us the respect that we deserve. Now, and it's understood that within that 14% of African Americans, Black Americans, you have your professionals, your doctors, lawyers, businessmen, and then on the other, you have your misfits and criminals and everyone in between. So, but bottom line, we are U.S. citizens. We have rights as a U.S. citizen. Everyone should have our constitutional rights, due process and all that, all right? And when we see Black Americans being killed. You know, there's another one. There's another one. There's another. You know, it's ongoing. And you know, with the development of camera phones and social media, it's being brought to light a whole lot faster and a whole lot more than ever before. Even though this has been going on for a long, long time. So the bottom line, it's an issue, and if we take a look at some of these fixes and remedies, you know, the training, the defunding, and you know, moral respect for each other, I think we should start seeing some changes. I hope to see some changes. So with that, thanks for tuning in. If you like what you saw, please like the video and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks for tuning in. All right.